I'm Natalie, and I'm 34 years old. If you told me a few months ago that I'd be telling you this story, I would have laughed it off. But here I am, sharing an experience that turned my life upside down. I never thought I would be in this situation, and I definitely didn't expect the chain of events that followed. I grew up in a small town. My family wasn't rich, but we were comfortable. My parents were supportive, and I had a happy childhood, though there was always a sense of expectation: get good grades, work hard, settle down, and be happy. Fast forward to today, and I'm married to Tom. We've been together for over 10 years, married for 8. We have 2 kids, a 6-year-old son, Lucas, and a 3-year-old daughter, Zoe. On the surface, we were the perfect family living in a nice suburban home. But something had been missing. And I didn't even realize it until it was too late. The trouble started subtly, like most things do. Tom and I had been distant for a while. Our conversations were minimal, and the affection had all but disappeared. We were 2 people living parallel lives under the same roof. I found myself feeling more and more isolated, unsure of how to bridge the gap. Then, I met him. His name was Ethan, and we met in a work-related context. He was confident, a bit mysterious, and different from anyone I had known before. He had this energy about him, an undeniable charisma that made me feel alive. We started working closely together on a project, and before long, those harmless moments of conversation turned into something else. At first, it was just a few jokes, a bit of flirty banter. He'd compliment me in ways I hadn't heard in years, and for the first time in a long while, I felt noticed. He didn't know the intricacies of my life. He didn't know about Tom, our kids, or the family life I was struggling to keep afloat. Ethan was a breath of fresh air, a distraction from the stagnant routine I had come to dread. But soon, what was supposed to be a harmless connection spiraled into something more. A late-night text, then a coffee meeting outside work, followed by moments that grew increasingly intimate. I knew I was treading dangerous waters, but it felt too good to stop. As the weeks went by, things between Ethan and I escalated. The spark I thought I had lost in my marriage ignited again, but not with Tom. It was with Ethan. I began to think about him all the time, when I woke up, while I was at work, even when I was with my family. It felt exciting, rebellious, and for the first time in a long time, I felt alive. But as the excitement grew, so did the guilt. I would look at Tom and feel a pang of regret, a knot in my stomach. He had no idea what was happening behind his back. He trusted me, loved me, and here I was, betraying that trust. I began to pull away from him, emotionally, mentally, and physically. I started creating excuses to avoid time together, not wanting to face the guilt that lingered. And yet, I couldn't stop seeing Ethan. The distance between Tom and I grew even more. Our conversations became non-existent, and the walls between us seemed insurmountable. Tom was beginning to notice, though. He wasn't blind to the changes in our relationship, but I kept deflecting and pretending everything was fine. One evening, it all came crashing down. I was at home with the kids, and Tom was at work late. I decided to meet Ethan for dinner, just to get away from everything for a while. I was running late, and my phone buzzed. Tom had sent a message. He had found something. A message, a picture, I don't know. He didn't specify, but I could feel my heart race. I quickly responded, trying to cover it up, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he knew something was wrong. Later that night, Tom came home earlier than expected. I was in the kitchen, trying to prepare dinner, when he walked in. His eyes were cold, but he didn't say anything right away. He stood there for a moment, staring at me, and I knew, he knew. "You've been distant," he said softly, his voice almost breaking. "I've been giving you space, but I can feel it. Something's wrong." My heart sank. I had no idea how to answer him. Everything I had been avoiding was now standing right in front of me. Just as I opened my mouth to respond, the doorbell rang. I froze. I hadn't told anyone we were having company. Tom looked at me, a mixture of confusion and suspicion in his eyes. "I've been meaning to tell you something," I said, my voice trembling. I've been seeing someone." The words felt like they were suffocating me. Tom's face went pale. His eyes, usually so warm and trusting, turned cold. For a moment, he just stood there, unable to speak. I could feel the weight of the silence crushing me. "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did." The tears started flowing then. I had no control over them. I was angry at myself, heartbroken for what I had done to him, to us. Tom was shaking his head, disbelief written all over his face. "I don't understand," he finally said, his voice cracking. "How could you do this to me? To our family?" I wanted to explain, to justify my actions, but the truth was, there was no justification. The affair had started as a way to fill a void, to feel something again, but it had spiraled into something far beyond what I ever imagined. I had crossed a line, and now there was no going back. The truth hit hard, not just for Tom, but for everyone around us. Our kids didn't understand why their dad wasn't coming home at the usual time. They didn't know why their mom was crying so much. They didn't know why everything had changed in an instant. Tom, for his part, was quiet for the rest of the night. He didn't shout, didn't demand answers. He simply withdrew into himself, and I could see the walls go up. I wanted to fix it, to make everything right, but I knew I had broken something that might never be repaired. The next few days were a blur. We barely spoke. Tom kept his distance, and I spent my nights lying awake, filled with regret. I couldn't help but wonder if there was any way to fix what I had broken. Could we ever go back? Could we rebuild the trust, the connection we had lost? I couldn't answer those questions. Not yet. So here I am, still trying to figure out what happens next. I've apologized, I've begged for forgiveness, but I can't erase the hurt I caused. Tom hasn't made any decisions yet, he says he needs time to think. And I get it. He deserves that time. As for Ethan, I ended things with him after everything came out. It's not that I don't care about him, but I can't keep running away from my problems. I need to face them, no matter how painful it is. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know if Tom and I will ever be the same. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. All I know is that everything changed the day I brought Ethan home and told Tom the truth. I hurt the person I love, and now, I have to live with that. If you've ever been in a similar situation, or if you have any thoughts on what I should do next, please leave a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts or any advice you might have. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more stories like this. Thanks for listening.